I'm going to tell you a story that I really know, because that's the story that we actually lived at British Gas, and how to introduce the practice of usability testing where the company used to outsource it to agencies. So this is a story of how I went from going to a coffee shop and ending up in a lab with kind of all the little steps. So before I start, who's conducting usability testing on the designs, prototypes, their work? That's great. That's actually really good. So hopefully you relate to this. And for those who don't test their prototypes because they're not allowed to, or they've never done it yet, hopefully this can help. So before we get to the coffee shop, how do you build empathy, and how it was a challenge for me? So before I worked at Centrica, British Gas or Centrica, I used to work in a B2B agency. I didn't have access to my clients' users because actually budget was really, really tight. UX wasn't always considered as part of the project. And also as an agency, we're supposed to have the answers. They come to us, they give us money to give them the answers. So sometimes agencies might not feel comfortable about asking their clients, oh, could we ask your customers questions because we don't know this or we don't know that and we want to find out what they actually need. We'd rather say we know what they need and then figure it out. So what I could do was try to help our clients to maybe write scenarios, train them how to test their prototypes themselves. Because once we were gone, the project was done, that was it. We were jumping on something else, but the client could continue and maybe hopefully test before they went live with whichever designs they were given. And then I moved to British Gas. And when I moved to British Gas, the company used to outsource user testing. They did it to agencies. The budget was really, really hefty. I mean, we were talking about £5,000 if the test was conducted by the agency. And we could lower it down to £2,000 if we actually ran the test and used their facilities. The reports were really long. I mean, when you pay £5,000, you expect 50 pages of learnings and, a really good-looking report. The problem with those is when you send them to your stakeholders to, try to communicate the findings of the usability testing, no one reads them. Best case scenario, they will reach page 10, and that's probably 2 out of the 50 stakeholders you send it to. And also that there was very little involvement of the team. And when I say team, when I mention team in my presentation, I don't mean the design team. I mean the product team. So that's developers, that's the product owner, the business analyst, the scrum master. Everyone involved in the product team should be involved. And at that stage, we didn't really have any involvement. So we wanted to bring this in-house. We wanted to run our own tests. We wanted to test our own designs and learn firsthand and not via a long report produced by an agency. So the coffee shop or any public place is the right place to start. You don't need a lot of budget, just a few coffees. If you get 7 or 10 people to test your prototypes, that's 7 or 10 coffees. And it's just a few hours of your time. Just grab your laptop, whatever you have on Axure, on Adobe XD, whatever prototyping tool you're using, paper prototypes. Just take it with you, go out, and try to find people. So any device, if you're using your laptop, when I use my laptop, I use Silverback, so I could record the sessions, and I didn't have to take too many notes. I could then rewatch the sessions. And then a notebook for really, really quick notes. How much time does it take? It's very, very fast. I mean, grab your stuff, get out, and test. So the good things we had from going to coffee shops and do guerrilla testing, well, you learn firsthand. You don't learn something from someone else. You don't have to trust someone that tells you, well, this is what we've seen. You get insight very quickly, and you can actually literally go back to the office, sit back at your desk, and pivot, change the design. You saw an interaction that doesn't work, like absolutely none of your participants understood what you were trying to do. You can pivot really quickly. You don't have to wait for a few days, maybe a week, to get that report. The downsides, again, no involvement of the team or the stakeholders just yet. And it may be difficult to reach your real audience. If you are working for a B2B company, a very specialized industry, you might not find your audience in coffee shops. You may, but you may not. So the next step for us was getting a room. Meeting rooms and rooms, that's the one resource we all have. We all have a meeting room somewhere. We all have a room that you can book or just take for some time. So again, for the budget here, we started testing in a meeting room. So we had to recruit participants, and that's basically recruitment fees and incentive, depending on how generous you want to be for your users. This is basically the cost you have to keep in mind. And then there's your time. You do the prototype, you run the tests, you might be busy for a day and then a little bit of time to do your report. But that's basically your budget. So you can be really small. Start with 5 users or 4 users, maybe even 2 users. Get someone in, get that thing done for the first time. In terms of setup, just a meeting room. Put a paper on the door, book it in your booking system, whether it's Outlook or something else. A laptop, again, silverback, so you can record your sessions and then go back to them after you finish your test, and a notebook. I have some pictures. I realized when I did the presentation they don't look really good. But hey, that was one of the first tests, usability testing. Well, actually, a card sorting exercise on this one that I've done with customers. We were looking at our information architecture, and we wanted to validate whether our newly designed architecture was going to be user-centered. That's the way your customers, your users will look for information. So we asked them to do some card sorting. The upsides, well, you have a controlled environment. You control the place. This is your place. This is your turf. So you're comfortable, and you manage all the parameters. You can add criteria to your participant recruitment. Now you can actually reach who you want to see. If you're testing a product for landlords, for example, you can ask your recruitment agency, I want to talk to landlords, and I don't want tenants because this product is not going to be relevant to them. The downsides, it's hard work for one designer. It's a complete day in a meeting room doing the same thing. You can't really take notes because you want to focus on your participant, but then you need to take some notes, otherwise you might lose things you don't remember later on. And you need to go through recordings. So it's basically taking a whole day to test, and then you have to go back to the recordings, and maybe not a whole day again, but you'll probably spend a few hours watching those. So how can we do it better? We add a second meeting room. The second meeting room will give you space to add observers and potentially stakeholders at some point. So now, same amount of same budget. For us, it's roughly £600 to get 5 to 6 participants per day, and we usually run testing for the whole day. And then now you have 2 designers' time because you have one of your colleagues that's going to help you. It doesn't have to be a designer. Anyone can observe. But if you have a teammate, that's probably easier because they know what you're testing. The setup, 2 meeting rooms, 2 laptops, silverback, again, to record just as a safety net. And then your online screen sharing solution can be Skype, can be Appear In. You don't need much. I mean, you only need 2 seats. Appear In allows for 4 seats. Just get a free solution. You don't need to spend any money on that. And then what we do is we print our stimuli, and put them on the wall. So we can then put Post-its next to the area the participant is interacting with. I have some pictures. Oh, and roughly 1 day now, because you've got someone helping you. You won't hopefully have to go through all the recordings again. The recordings are now kind of a safety net, just in case you don't remember something. So this was, I think, one of the first time times we had a second meeting room. So that's the observation room. And as you can see, we have printouts. We put post-its. So you have post-its next to the call to actions, post-its next to the footer, and our FAQs. So now you can put your feedback, your observations in context. And all you need to do at the end of the session is take a picture, and that's it, just like this one, but maybe a better picture so you can read what you have. But that's it. That's your note-taking. You don't need to have pages and pages and pages of notes. So what's good about this? Well, you have a second pair of eyes. It removes a little bit of bias because, I mean, we're designers. We used to say when participants come in, we're not testing you, we're testing the design. I haven't designed this, so feel free to be, mean to the design if the design doesn't work for you, because I didn't design it. The truth is I did, so. Yeah, it removes bias because of a second person being there. No need to take notes anymore. You can focus fully on the participant, and that makes a big difference. If you can give them your full attention, that shows. They can feel it. No recording needed anymore. We still recorded just as a safety net, but recordings, they're really long. They're really heavy. They take a lot of space. I don't know what solution you use. We used to store things on Dropbox. It just fills your Dropbox with stuff you never go back to almost ever. So we removed that. But for a while, we continued. The downsides, getting 2 meeting rooms for a full day can be tricky. I mean, Centrica, British Gas, we have all the meeting rooms we want, but they're all booked all the time for people having phone calls alone. I'm sure you have the same problem. Every company I worked for, the one problem was meeting rooms. But hey, the more you do it, the more you'll get sort of priority over the meeting rooms. But it's still tricky to get some sometimes. So maybe if you only have one, just do the observation from your desk next. You don't really need a second room, but it's better. And then screen sharing isn't always great. The problem is you might go from a room that's here to a room that's literally on the other side of the wall. Skype appear in. If your Wi-Fi is not great, or if that service is having a bit of a server problem, you have cutouts. You sometimes have a missynchronization between image and sound. So that's not always ideal. Compression can be really bad as well. But it's a start, and it was a great start for us to include observation. So our next step was, well, you know what? That meeting room that is actually sitting next to the design team, the product teams, and where we were, the digital world, well, this room now is our lab. That's it. That's all it took. We called it our customer lab. So once you claim the room and make it yours, your cost is basically the same because you didn't really change anything except putting a label on the door saying, hey, this is a customer lab now. So you have a customer lab. We had the chance to have an observation room just on the other side, big enough to invite people. We added an iMac, just a desktop. You just need a desktop, so you can actually plug in a mobile device if you want to mirror the screen. You can basically mirror everything from that desktop to the next room. We found a camera that was there in a cupboard, hasn't been used in months, if not a year. Really good camera, 4K, I think it was 4K camera or something, but it wasn't used. So we put it in the room, put a cable on it, attached it to the observation room, and we suddenly had a body language observation device, which was really cool. But we didn't buy anything. The big TVs, I have some pictures. We took them. They were around, not being really used. So again, hey, this is ours with the meeting room. Customer lab now. And then again, stimulus printouts and post-its. These really help to keep context when you capture feedback. So the other thing we've done is we decorated the room, sort of. We went to a thrift shop, spent probably £20 in really ugly things. But we wanted to make it look like a home. So we had curtains, which is something we don't really have in the building for the rest of the space. We had a really bad lamp. I don't have a picture of the inside here. But also we changed the door. This is the only door that doesn't look like a plain thing, monochromatic door in the whole of the 7 buildings we have in Staines. And we called it 10 Download Street, just for the little joke. Next to the door, we have a calendar, but I have a slide for that a bit later. Oh, and also, there you go. So that's the iMac. Again, that's an iMac that we didn't really use at the time. So hey, this is now the Customer Lab iMac. And we can plug in an Android phone, an iPhone. We can mirror that in the room next door. That's the camera that's been sitting in a box for months that we just, hey, get a tripod, put it in there. And you can see the really nice non-working clock there. We got from the thrift shop in Staines. Oh, and important piece also that we changed is that because we were able to wire everything with an HDMI cable to the next room, sound, we also wanted to fix that and have like very good sound and well, very good sound. It's not surround, but it's actually going in sync. So you don't have what I had when I was a kid, and you don't have the impression of watching a dubbed movie, you know, Star Wars in French, not great. The only guy that was good was Darth Vader, because you can't see anything. But yeah, so Avaya phone, if you work in a medium-sized company, you probably have those, so just take one, put one in the lab, put one in the observation room, and job done. This is our observation room. As you can see, screens, that's the first big screen we managed to nick from somewhere and say, this is now ours. And then we used screen monitor, computer monitors for the time being. And we had the Nest camera. Someone didn't use their Nest camera, so we put it also there because wide angle. Well, that was kind of nice for first body language camera. And then we have whiteboards. And this room is really nice because we have like whiteboards all the way. And this allows you to write stuff really quickly, erase it. You can put your printouts there, Post-its. Oh my God, we love Post-its. I mean, who doesn't like Post-its here? A good test looks like this. You have a lot of observations from a lot of different people. Just quickly, we use a system here. So observers are given yellow, sometimes green Post-its, and one observation per Post-it. And every observer will go in round and give their feedback and explain to everyone, this is what I saw. This is the behaviors I saw. Once we see, after 3 or 4 participants, some trends and some patterns, we have the pink ones. So if we see someone really struggling with a carousel or something like that, hey, they struggled with the carousel, or they didn't quite understand that piece of copy because there's some jargon there, or there's an acronym we never defined. So once we have patterns, we have those pink Post-its. Again, at the end of the day, take a picture like this, and that's the basis for your report. You only need to look at the pink Post-its, and sometimes yellow ones have a quote to illustrate your finding. We found the second screen, took it, put it in the lab, and see here you can see the team. So when I said team, we have tester. We had actually a stakeholder. That's one of the first stakeholders we had in the room. 2 stakeholders, now that I see. We have a product owner. We have another UX designer, developer. There's another developer on the left. And then you have the participant. And the funny thing, I think if I watch, yeah. So it's not even a UX designer in the lab with the customer anymore. We are training our product owners, our developers, whoever wants to help us to actually run the tests with the customer. So the UX designer can be on the observing side and kind of moderate the room with, you know, the team knows how to behave. They do that every month. But stakeholders might be there for the first time. So it's nice to, you know, take them through the process and explain to them what we want to observe. A few new other pictures. So here, we managed to do a Wizard of Oz. So that's Alexa before it was released in the UK. So we were thinking it would be cool to kind of like do some of the stuff you can do on the website, but with a voice interface, but never really used the voice interface except maybe Siri or the early Google search voice thing. So what we did is we took just a Bluetooth speaker, put it in the room. You can see it with the participant there. We had, on the iMac, we had just a 2 slides keynote actually showing one slide was, it was thinking what it does, like the blue light rotating, and one slide was just still. And the funny thing is, customers didn't really realize, when we told them it was fake, we were just feeding text in a text-to-speech software on the laptop connected via Bluetooth, they were like, no, I'm pretty sure I saw the speaker, doing its thing. And we're like, no. The visual cue was on a screen, and the audio was on the speaker. And we're like, no. So it really works. I mean, smoking rails really works. And for us, having that test really helped us understand how far you can push someone in a loop before they really get angry at the device. So we kept repeating 15 times, sometimes 20 times. Sorry, didn't understand. Sorry, didn't understand. Really like this. And we wanted to measure how many times is it okay to push a user in case we didn't understand a meter reading or something like that. So we could figure out how many loops before we go like, sorry, we can't really do it, try another day, or go on the website. So really, really useful. One of the last things we do in a usability testing session is we do a mini retrospective. So those who work in a Scrum or Kanban, we ask everyone, participants, but stakeholders, to actually tell us what went well, what did they actually appreciate, and what can we improve next time. So it makes them own the process. A stakeholder who tells you, well, it was kind of tricky because I didn't understand the hypothesis, so I couldn't remember the hypothesis. Then we know, let's write down the hypothesis on the whiteboard because that's going to be easier to remember. What are we trying to prove or disprove here? So everyone tells us what we can do better. And also, we go through all the pink Post-its and agree on the outcomes of the session. So when the report comes out, well, first, they actually took part in writing the report in some way. But also, if we need someone to back us up, they will be like, yeah, I was there, I saw that, I agreed that was kind of something that was repeating in a few sessions, that's something we need to address. So if you need a stakeholder's backup, that's a great way to get it because they actually agreed to write this thing on the board. And then this is another thing that helped us getting stakeholders in the room. And basically, not just stakeholders, anyone in the observation room. So people were like, well, when's your next usability testing, usability session? Well, I don't know, let me check with the designers. I would go on Slack, hey, who's doing usability testing next week? We'll get the answer, then go back to the stakeholder or whoever asked. So we started putting a calendar next to the customer lab. That was the first iteration. That was a few months ago. So we had a swim lane per team, and then a date and the subject of the test. And this is the new one. So we are scaling a bit bit fast right now. So we have lots of teams, but also our teams have to test once a month. Every product team spends 6 hours a month observing users, potential customers or customers, using what they're building, using what they're coding or designing or testing. So it becomes more difficult every day to get a date. As you can see, I mean, that was taken last week. We're mid-Feb, and March is already a third booked already. So that's really good, really, really good, because people walking by can see when there's a test about the product they're interested in. Another thing we worked on to ease our stakeholders' life is to work on a usability testing report that works for them and that works really well and that is recognizable. So this is something that we iterated for the past 2.5 years. And this is, I think, the latest. It's the latest state of it. And the really cool thing now is that one hypothesis, one page. We have the definition of the hypothesis. We have the testing script. So this is the document the facilitator of the test takes in the customer lab with the user. We highlight things to look out for. So during the test, hey, this is going to be like a tricky part, maybe. So we need to look out for this kind of things. And then we have our findings, so the color coding, and then the stimulus on the right-hand side. So just to remember what they were testing. We measure effectiveness, was the task completed or not. That's kind of a binary result. We measure efficiency as well. we used the system usability scale assess for a long time. We are trying out a combination of that and the single is question test as well after each task. And then we have satisfaction. We're using the smiley face. I don't remember the name of that, but yeah, the smiley face thing you have in airports and places sometimes. And this is really good because we can then feed that back into our customer experience maps that we share with our customer experience team colleagues. So we have, back in the days I was in an agency, when you build a customer experience map, we sort of made up this might be a bad experience, so we're going to put it below the line. This is a good delight, so we'll put it up there. That's a good experience. So here we actually measure it. And then we have the major takeaway for each hypothesis. We also set up a user testing channel on Slack. That's to share with everyone on the digital floor and whoever is on our digital Slack. So if you're interested in user testing, you can get the dates. I don't know if we see them here. No, but we post the reports. And we also post our ideas on how to improve the report or the way we run the session. We really like to iterate and make things work better. So what's good about this? What's really, really good is you have enough space to have observers, your team, your stakeholders. There's whiteboards all around to capture observations. If you don't have whiteboards on the walls, just bring some on wheels and really take the space. The good thing is there is a demand from the team and product owners. So at the beginning, we had to force the team and tell them it would be nice if you observed your users using the stuff you're building. Now they're actually asking, when's the next one? Because I'm building this thing, and I'm not quite sure it's going to work. And it's not just a UX sport anymore. This is the most satisfying thing, is that for 2 years and a half, 3 years now almost, it became, from being a very UX-driven thing that only a UX designer, maybe 2 designers would run, this is now run by the whole team and stakeholders, and they really take ownership of this. The downside is that the lab is popular now, so we have to book it well in advance. Some pictures of stakeholders. So it took some time, but then we had stakeholders coming more and more. So these actually, apart from the chap on the left who's the head of design at British Gas, they're all stakeholders, product managers. We have propositions managers, CX people. Really, really good to have. This is a legal lady. She came in to see how people interacted with the legal stuff on a product page and on an acquisition journey. At the bottom here, we have our director of digital transformation. That day, we were running a session with our colleagues from RNIB about accessibility. And I think he's the one who wrote the most post-its. That was so good to see. And here, we have Ian Conn, who is the CEO of Centrica, and our CIO as well. So we are getting exposure to the C-level people. I don't remember Ian Conn mentioning us, but Mike Young, our CIO, mentioned us a few times on town halls. These guys are bringing users in. These guys are actually, thinking user-centered design. They are putting the customer at the center of their activities. And he's using us as examples to ask everyone else in the company to do this. So getting those 2 guys in the room was so good. So, quick question. So we brought user testing in-house 2.5 years, 3 years ago. Can you guess how many customers, users, we got in our lab over the course of 3 years? So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000. Who goes for 1,000? 2,000? Well, between 2 and 3. Between 3 and 4? More than 4? That would be really good. We actually got 2,000 plus. I didn't have the exact number yesterday evening, but on average, we bring between 2 and 3 customers on every opening day of the year. And that from having none 3 years ago. So quick examples. I'll try to be really quick. one example. So we had our legal lady in the observation room. She couldn't believe people didn't read terms and conditions. Well, yeah. I mean, do you read them? So, yeah, maybe not. So too long, didn't read. I can't show you the screenshot. I actually removed it this morning because we haven't released it yet. But what we're going to try is to actually take out the 3, 4, 5 main things you need to know from all that long thing about the tariff you're going to switch to, and tell you these are the 4 things, 5 things you need to know before switching. And then you press go. So that was on the back of usability testing. We wouldn't have been able to convince them. So what's next for us? We started working with MENCAP and RNIB. We are going to involve even more institutions to push accessibility through the lab. We found out that for screen readers, our app is not quite there. Actually, it's not there at all. So now we know what we need to improve, and we're going to keep measuring this. As I said, the lab is really popular, so we're building a second one with a better wallpaper than just bricks printed and actually put in the wrong way on the wall. We're adding more screens. I mean, now we don't have to steal stuff. We can ask for it, and we actually get it. And those are really big. They don't really look big in the picture. They're really big. So that's going to be really cool. And it's going to be really sexy. Your stakeholders will want to go in that room because it looks really cool. So yeah, so go from offering an Americano to a stranger to offering sweets to your colleagues and stakeholders. That's so much more fun. I mean, seeing them taking a place in that process is really good. And a few advice to get there. Start small. Onwa said it. Start small. That's the key. Don't ask for permission. Just go outside, see 2 people in the street, test your prototype, come back. Next time you have 3, 4, 7, who knows? And maybe in 3 years, you have really cool TVs. Demonstrate the value of usability testing. That's the key. When they see it's working, when they see you start improving an interaction before you put it on the website, it's really, it works really well. Claim existing hardware and space. Don't ask for a budget. There's always stuff around. A computer screen, small, then bigger, then massive. A camera, use your own. There's one in the cupboard. It doesn't have to be great. I mean, we started with Skype. The compression of that thing was horrible. Involve the team. That's maybe after the last one, that's the most important. Involve the team, get their involvement. It's really important. And then iterate. Start small, improve, and improve. I think we're in iteration 23 of our usability testing method. So yeah, thank you. If you are going to introduce usability testing in your company, please share your stories with me, because I'd be really happy to see if it works for you. Thank you.